Good morning and welcome to the CORCEL PLC investor presentation. Throughout the recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and they can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated in the right corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives in the meeting itself. However, the company can review all the questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to CEO Scott Gilbert. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you everyone for joining us in this investor presentation. This is the second time we've done an investor presentation this year, and the purpose today is to really give investors an overview of where we are, primarily from an operational perspective. So joining me today is Geraldine Giraldo, who's CORCEL's Chief Commercial and Strategy Officer, Richard Lane, our Chief Operating Officer, and Scott Case, Chief Financial Officer. And myself, Scott Gilbert, I'm the CEO of CORCEL. So we'll talk, just to remind everybody about our portfolio overview, operational milestones over the last 12 months, what we're doing from an operational perspective, and lastly, Geraldine will wrap up with our growth and expansion plans. So just to remind everybody, we've got three core assets in the onshore Kwanza Basin. Con 16, which is an asset operated by CORCEL. Con 11 and 12 are operated by Angola's national oil company, Sonangol. We also announced last year entry into Brazil through the signing of an option agreement in a gas producing asset onshore in the northeast of Brazil. The company is yet to determine whether it's going to exercise that option or not. But our focus today will be primarily on our operational assets in Angola and primarily in Con 16. So over the last 12 months, we've had a series of operational milestones which have taken the company from moving forward across its different operation activities that have taken place in Angola. So focusing primarily on Con 16, which is where the majority of the funding the company has raised over the last 12 months has gone into. We started with EFTG on Con 16 and Con 12 and the partial coverage of Con 11. So that happened in December 2024. We then moved over to awarding and starting the environmental impact assessment over Con 16, which allowed for the eventual award of the seismic contract, but that happened in April 2025. So we awarded environmental impact assessment. That work took place. And from there we moved on to in May 2025 when we increased our equity up to 85% on Con 16, and we subsequently divested 5% of Con 16 to Santana Energy for $2.5 million in cash. We were able to secure further institutional investors into the company, and we were able to commit and award the 2D seismic contract in Con 16. On the back of that, the warrants that were structured in February 2025 were successfully exercised, and that generated proceeds to the company of close to £4 million. And that funding essentially allowed us to start the seismic program, which is exactly where we are today, and we have the funds to complete that program over the next few months. Point forward after that, our plan is to drill a high impact pre-salt, high impact exploration well, targeting the pre-salt and the post-salt towards the end of next year and into Q1 of 2027. I had the opportunity to be in Angola last week, and just wanted to share these images where we've got the virus trucks ready to go. We've got roughly about 200 people on the ground. So a lot of the focus over the last week has been on final health and safety preparations and checks, and make sure that everything is up to standard to begin the work. So it's a very exciting time for the company. It's the first major seismic program in the onshore Kwanza Basin since 2010, covering the 300 plus kilometer lines that we're going to be covering over the next few months. So over the last 12 months, we've really strengthened the shareholder base of the company, bringing in institutional investors. We successfully had the warrants exercise, which fully funds the seismic program, and really is a testament of the operational milestones that we've been able to deliver for the company. And going into the beginning of next year, we strongly feel the company is very well positioned for an accelerated growth. It's a pivotal moment, and Geraldine will talk a little bit about our plans going forward. With that, I'll pass on to Richard.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, everyone. So first, we'll go through the CORCEL portfolio in the Kwanza Basin and our associated work program, and then we'll move to cover the ongoing seismic acquisition campaign at CON16, because we're active on the ground at the moment, and we can share some pictures and updates on where we are with that. So yeah, as Scott said, we've licensed over 3,000 square kilometers in the Kwanza Basin, this oil-prone basin across three blocks. We have an operated interest in CON16 and non-operated interest in CON11 and CON12. As a reminder, the Kwanza Basin, this is a proven petroleum system. We know hydrocarbons are there. Legacy wells from the 50s and 60s prove it. Those discoveries from the 50s and 60s were made based on very limited data, predominantly surface geology and gravity data, and modern sort of exploration techniques, the kind that we're applying now and that we're going to be talking about in this presentation, simply were not available back then. So we are now looking at the same known proven system, but with modern 21st century eyes. And so what is our immediate work program in our portfolio? We have started operations now at CON16 with our 2D seismic acquisition program. And that seismic data, the acquisition is going to be going on December and January and into February, and that data will get processed during 2026. And then when our team have completed the interpretation of that data, that will then lead to the identification of multiple drilling opportunities. So the pathway is very clear here. We're acquiring the data over the next few months. We'll be processing that data over 3 to 6 months after an acquisition, and then we'll be interpreting it and then drilling based off that data. And in the midterm, there'll be 2D acquisition in the CON11 and 12 blocks, which is just located to the north of CON16. And this will also lead to some exploration drilling activity approximately 12 months after the acquisition of the seismic data. So we've got an active program across our licenses. But on this slide, we're showing sort of the existing 2D seismic data that was acquired in 2010 and the CORCEL planned acquisition in CON16 in red. So if you see the seismic lines on this satellite map to the left, the lines in orange are the sort of regional data set that was acquired in 2010, and in red we've got our planned acquisition. And we've talked about this before, but very briefly, the 2010 regional 2D survey was the first time that modern technology was used to image the Kwanza Basin. This regional data was recently reprocessed this year by TGS to improve the imaging and reliability, and that benefited CON16 as well. CORCEL licensed that reprocessing over CON16, CON11 and 12 and the surrounding blocks. So we have that data set, and the quality is good. Images are shallower post-salt targets and the deeper pre-salt targets. But this is a regional scale data set, and therefore the line spacing is too wide to support immediate drilling without additional data, which takes us to why we're acquiring our seismic data now. So the CORCEL 2025 2D program at CON16, which is the red lines on the satellite map, it will reduce that 2D line spacing from 15 kilometers, which it is today, to around 2.5 kilometers, which basically is with a tighter grid and with more seismic lines that allows for a much more accurate representation of the subsurface. In addition, the CORCEL acquisition will give us sort of very high resolution imaging of the subsurface. We're using very high-end acquisition parameters that have never been used before in the onshore Kwanza Basin. And on integrating all of this data in 2026, we will have multiple drill-ready prospects within CON16 that will have been built on very solid technical foundations. And so here we have an image that was taken during one of the scouting trips that CORCEL attended. So this image from a drone is actually over the CON16 area during one of our scouting trips. You can see the cars going along the path there. So you can see what the terrain looks like here. It's sort of a savanna type terrain with sort of rolling hills. And what we've been able to do is part of the 2024 EFTG acquisition by Metatech. One of the products that we received was a high resolution LiDAR survey over CON16. And this was actually acquired to assist with the EFTG gravity gradiometry data. Basically, you use it to provide surface level corrections for the data. But we're able to use this LiDAR survey, which is effectively a map of the surface, a high resolution map of the surface of CON16. We were able to use that to create maps and identify surface level faulting and structures, map out roads and tracks, identify rough and smooth terrain, basically use it as a scouting tool to assist us with our operations during our seismic acquisition. So we're able to identify where we might have challenging terrain for seismic acquisition, because we have to get large, heavy vibro-sized trucks in. And this was a very useful tool to help us scout and help us position our seismic lines. So it's a really good example where we acquired this sort of very technical, high resolution geophysical data set, but we were actually able to use some of that data to help us scout and to help us operationally above the ground. So we got a lot of value from that. And this image shows you where we're identifying smooth terrain, easy access. We're able to check that by going on the ground, with our 4x4s and check that our findings match our model. So that was very productive and helped us, position our lines in the most sensible places. And here we have some images of our operations today. So we've got the image on the left shows you some of the vibro-sized trucks that we have. These are very heavy, 60,000 pound vibro-sized trucks that send sound waves through the subsurface. And as a reminder, what is 2D seismic? How does this work? Basically 2D seismic gives us a cross-sectional view through the subsurface, and we send acoustic waves into the ground and measure how they bounce back. And we do that with these vibro-sized trucks. So these vibro-sized trucks go out to our lines that we've cleared, and they send vibrations through the Earth's surface. And basically different rock types and fluids in the subsurface reflect those sound waves differently. And we record that data and then process it. And that data helps us identify traps where hydrocarbons can accumulate, and we pick drilling locations with a much higher confidence based off that data. And it's a critical step between us saying we think there's something there to us being able to say we know exactly where to drill. So those vibro-sized trucks help us do that. And the image in the top right is a vehicle inspection that we conducted a few days ago. We're going to have lots of vehicles on site. They've been inspected by our HSE manager, and we've been doing HSE training, first toolbox meetings, and the team are active now on the ground at CON16. So the acquisition will start very shortly. We're starting to prepare the lines for our 326 line kilometer acquisition. And that acquisition should be complete in the next few months. And like I said, we'll go to process that data and then interpret it, and that should lead to multiple drilling opportunities. But we have hundreds of people on the ground now, active, working on CON16, and we're sort of looking forward to sharing sort of updates as we advance our operations at CON16 over the next few weeks. And now I'm going to pass on to Geraldine, who's going to talk about our strategic expansion and the business development. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. As Scott and Richard stated, we're pleased to have delivered on the priorities for 2025. The main one being the equity increase in CON16 from 35% to 55% and then 85%. That strengthened our position as we prepare to secure financing for the high impact well in CON16. We've strengthened our cash position as well, as Scott mentioned, to deliver on the operational milestones, and having delivered consistently since 2024 on the operational targets, EFTG in 2023 and now seismic in 2024. I think we're well positioned to be able to grow the company. So the next phase of our strategy is designed to deliver resilience, cash flow, and long-term impact. And we've got 3 pillars for that. The first being organic growth. We have an existing portfolio that has got 2 additional assets. We've got CON16, our operated asset, which is our primary target. And we've got CON11 and CON12, which Richard alluded to at the beginning of his presentation. In CON16, we have an opportunity to integrate an experienced partner to complement our expertise as we prepare to drill this high impact post-salt, pre-salt well. We are looking at various options, including a farm down, and the equity position at 85 positions us quite strongly for that. The other element or the other lever in terms of organic growth is being able to replicate the value creation model that we have applied in CON16 to our non-operated assets. I think CON16 has provided us a very sound blueprint for value creation in the Kwanza Basin. We are now focused on working closely with our operator to be able to apply those true strategies. We are doing exactly what we did in CON16 in these 2 assets. We're using our contractual position to find opportunities to increase our equity. And we're working with our operator to enable us to transfer some of these valuable small company, agile operational experiences to unlock the value in those assets as well. With CON12 having both a pre-salt and post-salt potential like CON16, albeit not to the same magnitude. And so that is how we're positioning ourselves in terms of organic growth based on our existing portfolio. The second lever in terms of strategy is expansion in the Kwanza Basin. We told the market earlier this year that we had a strategic partnership with Santana to continue to evaluate opportunities across the basin to allow us to be able to enter into multiple blocks. We have the advantage as first movers to be able to understand the basin, to be able to understand and have a very solid relationship with the regulators. And we're now using that opportunity to be able to understand where else we want to acquire acreage in the basin. Our business development pipeline is very strong. This is also facilitated by the fact that Angola now has a permanent offer model similar to Brazil, which we are taking advantage of in terms of advancing discussions and negotiations across the basin. We are also well positioned to take advantage of the secondary market that is emerging. A lot of companies acquired acreage in the Kwanza Basin around the same time that we did. And there are gaps in terms of operations and moving some of those assets forward, and being well positioned in the basin and being a partner with many of the companies that operate these assets across the basin in other blocks. We are advancing and using that position to be able to actually strengthen our position and go after assets in a value accretive way, and ensure that we have a very strong portfolio and a strong positioning and maintain our leadership in the Kwanza Basin. The third pillar is one we've talked about consistently. As you recall, we have consistently mentioned that it is very important for us to secure cash flow. The objective of this is to accelerate the resilience of our portfolio and to make sure that we can then strategically use that strong portfolio to return value to the shareholders through very significant deals. We are, as you recall, we had the option in Brazil. We have extended our ability to make a decision on that option. And the reason we did that is that over time, as we've strengthened our financial position and we've capitalized the company, we have had the opportunity to open up new business development avenues in the conjugate margins of Angola and South America. And we're now evaluating a host of opportunities that could provide us that first production deal. And that we're looking to do as early as the second quarter of next year or the first quarter of next year, considering how strong the pipeline is of the opportunities we have developed over time. So we're really excited at CORCEL at this point in time, both from an operational perspective and a strategy perspective. I think we're well positioned for the new year. So thank you. I will hand over back to you.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions, and you can do so just by using the Q&A tab that is situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. We have received questions, and I want to start off the Q&A session with a pre-submitted question here, which reads as follows. Regarding Block Con 11, TO 13 and TO 14 wells, are activities still ongoing?
Yeah, I can take this one. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. So this in Con 11, that is a non-operated block. And the operator Sonangol is working on that asset. We are waiting for an official update from the operator on Con 11, and we can't make an announcement until the operator has notified the partnership and the National Petroleum Agency. And when they've sent their official sort of update on that, then we'll be able to communicate that to our investors. So at the moment, at present, the press release that we made in the first half of the year still stands, and we can't announce anything on Con 11 until the operator sends an official update to the partnership. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Richard. Another question here. If the Con 16 well is successful, what is the likely commercialization route, and would a farm down or partnership be considered for development?
I can answer that. I think that is a two-part question. So I'll take the first part, which is what is the likely commercialization route? There's always been two options in the Kwanza Basin. Being close to the Luanda refinery, there is an opportunity when you have a commercial well to set up an early production system and truck the oil to the refinery for revenue as early as a few months after drilling. Full field development, given the capacity at the refinery, will require some other solutions, and we have been working actively to look at preliminary solutions considering our expectations for the delivery of the prospects in Con 16. That would include a set of pipelines and a barge offshore to be able to process and eventually have the product transferred to international markets. So I think that covers the first part of the question. The second part relates to a farm down. As I mentioned, we are actively looking for a farm down partner. We have strategically increased our equity position in Con 16 to 85% in order to enable us to have this optionality. With this strong position, we're able to look for not only a partner that can help us finance the well and de-risk this for our shareholder base, but this could also allow us to bring in a partner with very complementary expertise and experience, considering that we're drilling a complex but potentially very high impact exploration well that will go all the way to the pre-salt.
That's great. Thank you very much, Geraldine. We have had another question here. What are the main operational risks that could delay seismic acquisition or the transition to drilling in 2026?
Yeah, I can take that one. Thank you. What are our biggest operational challenges? I guess so for Con 16 specifically, that would be logistics, infrastructure. You're mobilizing equipment into areas that haven't seen this kind of activity for decades. But it's also part of the opportunity. If this was easy, everyone would be doing it. And the fact that CORCEL can execute in this environment gives us a competitive advantage. So definitely logistics and infrastructure can one of those challenges. Of course, weather is as well. We're in a tropical climate, and you can get heavy rains. And we were anticipating that, and we have plans in place for that. If we get heavy rains during our acquisition, then we will have some downtime, and that might be for a few hours a day, it might be for an entire day, but you will get a little bit of stop-start during the acquisition if you have heavy rains. So those are the sort of operational risks for the seismic acquisition. I think we've got people on the ground now, and the seismic acquisition will happen. So yes, you might get a few days of delay here and there because of those things that I've mentioned, logistics and infrastructure, and weather related. But the work will happen, and we're with the team we've got in place, and with the service company that we've hired to do the acquisition, we're well placed to execute on our work. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question about the operational challenges.
That's great. Thank you very much, Richard. Moving on to the next question, do we have a drilling rig provisionally lined up for CON16, or do we need to wait for the data analysis to work out what rig would be the optimum type to use?
Yeah, I can take that on the rig. So we've got lots of options for the drilling rig, and yeah, to know exactly where you want to drill, yes, we need to wait for the seismic acquisition to be processed and interpreted. But today we have quite high confidence on what we're going to be targeting. So there's some very obvious prospects in our block that we've mapped using our existing seismic data, our EFTG data, and lots of legacy data. So we have a very good idea of what we would be targeting. So that means we know roughly how deep we would be drilling, and therefore, with that information, we can already start scouting for drilling rigs and equipment, long lead items and services. So you need the seismic data to know exactly where to drill, and that will come. That information will come during 2026 as we process the data and work with it. But the planning for drillings has already started, because we have that high level information. We know the depth that we want to drill to. We know the targets. We know the geological conditions and the formations. We know what to expect. So that means we can start planning now and look for a suitable rig. And we have multiple options for rigs that we're looking at today. So we haven't signed a drilling contract or anything like that, but we are looking at different rigs, and we don't need to wait for that seismic data to get processed and interpreted for us to start the planning, because obviously locking in a rig for a drilling campaign is one of the key things you need to do to get a firm sort of time frame on drilling. So that's something we're working towards now.
Thank you very much, Richard. Another question that's come in, are you looking at other blocks in the Kwanza or Congo Basin?
I can answer that one. So we've consistently stated that we would like to keep our focus on the Kwanza Basin. It will come down once we operate. It will be very important to make sure that we have operational synergies and this will drive down costs and ensure that we can return significant value from each barrel that we produce. However, we are always open to looking at different basins, and we are actively looking at different basins in order to ensure that we find the best acreage for our portfolio. So we are actively looking at the Congo Basin and other jurisdictions. Our focus, though, is on the Kwanza Basin in terms of deploying our capital today.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. And the final question we've got for the moment, what would be an ideal farming partner for CON16 in terms of size and profile? Are we talking of a large independent or other?
Yeah, I can take this question. Well, we actually we have been very lucky that we've seen a lot of interest in our block, and the question specifically asks if we're talking about a large independent. and we can safely say that we've had large independents talking to us, and we're keeping our options open. The key for us is to find a farming partner that's going to add strategic value. We want to make sure that we get this well right, and bring in a partner that is going to add from a technology and expertise perspective is going to be critical, as well as funding the well that we're going to be drilling towards the end of next year into 2027.
That's great. Thank you very much, Scott. Well, that is all the questions we've received from investors. So, Scott, if I could just ask you for a few closing comments, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would like to thank everybody for joining this presentation. The real objective with this was to showcase what we've done over the last 12 months, what we've done with the funding that we acquired through the different placings, and what we've been able to deliver with that, and really show how we've positioned the company for the next stage of transformational growth, which is along the lines of what sits in our pipeline of business development. So we're very excited about what's going on at the moment, and we're very excited about the future. And we look forward to continue to update the market on the progress of our operations on the ground. Thank you very much.
That's great. Well, I'd like to thank the team for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close the session, as you now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of CORCEL PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good morning to you all.